All right, welcome to the Faith Mentor Academy Week 1. Today we are talking about creative providership. We'll talk about what that means. We're also just going to go over the entire scope of what the academy, what you can look forward to in this academy. I am Adam from Adam. Hope this recording will be able to be, audio will be clear for you. I am hoping that you will, for those that are live and those who are watching it recorded, I hope that it will bring you into alignment with our overall message and our overall alignment as an institution as we're trying to formalize a organization called the Light Collective. All right. The entire basis of Faith Mentor. Why are we called Faith Mentors? Why are we doing Faith Mentor? Why Faith Mentor? Faith Mentor is because we live in a world of illusion. We live in a world of where everything is based on illusion. I'm going to stop my video because it looks like it may be delaying. Do y'all hear me okay? My video seems to be moving slow, but is my audio okay?
Yep. Yes.
Okay. Being a faith mentor, and I'm missing a slide here. The reason why we're called faith mentors is because the faith mentor is an individual that allows that supports and empowers and guides other people into truth. And the only way to be guided into truth is through faith. Because life is full of life is only appearances. Everything that we can see and observe with in the material world, our sight, sound, smell, everything that we see in the material world, these mental measurements are appearances. And these appearances lead to falsehood. And so the basis of this entire academy, the basis of enlightenment, the basis of spirituality, the basis of all of that is being able to know and distinguish truth from falsehood. It's being able to root out falsehood. It's been able to root out darkness, falsehood, darkness, lies. These are all synonyms of each other. And so they all are connected. Falsehood brings about darkness. So it goes like this: lies equal falsehood, and falsehood brings about darkness. And darkness is what blockens you from the light, blockens you from your own light, blockens you from spirit, blockens you from truth. And then that's what lowers your vibration. So what is falsehood? Falsehood is when we arrive at the wrong conclusions from relative truths, appearances, facts, or data. False, and these conclusions become narratives, and these narratives lead to the darkness. And the first anchoring of being a spiritual mentor, a faith mentor, is knowing, well, what is the truth that we can always be anchored in, stand on, to measure our conclusions that we come to. Not just measure the conclusions we come to, but help other people and helping them realize you're not seeing that correctly. You're not arriving at the right conclusion about what's happening in your life. Well, how do we know that they're not arriving at the right conclusion? Because that does not align with the 4 absolutes. And so in this first round of 3 weeks, we're going to be breaking down and going over the 4 absolutes that anchor us in truth, that helps us defeat and guard against falsehood. Now, falsehood is any conclusion that misses the mark, that does not support the 4 absolutes. So here's an example. Here's the new chart of consciousness and vibrations and falsehood. So let's look over here. So over here on this chart, we see we see the level of distortion, because every conclusion, every narrative has some level of distortion. But when you let's say that 1,000 in this chart, 1,000 equal darkness, like complete blackout, like there's no truth. 1,000 mean completely blacked out, complete darkhood, or complete darkness. There's no truth in it. Someone just joined. Leah must be having her class today. Leah, is that you? Okay. Someone else just joined, but we'll keep talking. Someone just joined from the Enlightened Collective. So here we have the level of falsehood, which rates on the 1,000. 1,000 means complete blackout. When you develop a conclusion, when you develop a narrative, and that narrative does not contain, when that narrative contains a high degree of falsehood, the highest degree of falsehood a narrative contains that you can still remain alive is 980. If you have more than 980 distortion of falsehood in your consciousness, in your thought forms, you're going to be insane, and which will lead to some type of death. People at 980, whatever thought form you have. So let's say you have narratives about your love life. You have narratives about your finances. You have narratives about working, earning a living. You have narratives about community and people. You have narratives about your future. If those narratives are rooted in falsehood, and especially a high degree of falsehood, that's going to put you in a resonance at the emotion of shame. And in that reality, whenever you don't get what you want, whenever reality doesn't bring you what you want, or whenever reality does not allow you, you don't get to avoid what you hope to avoid, you hear yourself in your heart go, I'm a loser, I'm inferior. That signals to the body constriction. It means that you're in danger. It means that you need to hide. So your inner life force constricts. When that constriction happens, you either can hide and lie and deny it. You go in denial about, because shame makes you want to lie and hide, because that in that constriction, you feel like you're a loser. So you don't want other people to see you're a loser. So you may lie and hide about what's happening in your life. When you do that, the reason why this is called an entrapment, because if you give into the entrapment, if you go to lying and hiding about whatever it is that happened in your reality, if you lie about it or hide from the reality that you didn't get what you want, if you're hiding and lying about the reality that you weren't able to avoid what you wanted to avoid, you actually reinforce the narrative and the falsehood. When you reinforce the narrative and the falsehood, it lands you in a fractal reality. And when we say fractal, what we're talking about is your geometric placement in life, your timeline. It lands you in a timeline or a world experience that is going to be miserable to you. And the only way out is to expose yourself to the truth. You have to say, my life sucks. I'm unhappy. I didn't get what I want. I wasn't able to avoid what I wanted to avoid. But pretty much, you have to be able to get to the truth to say, ultimately, the truth that you want to expose or a person needs exposing when they're in shame is they have to confess and come to the truth. This is not what I wanted, or I didn't get what I want, and I feel inferior. Feeling inferior It's not the same as lying and hiding. You can feel inferior. It's okay to feel inferior. It's okay to experience shame. Don't give in to the entrapment. It's when you lie and hide that you align yourself in a fracture that is miserable. There's nothing wrong in your heart saying, man, I feel like a loser. Okay, feel like a loser, but don't go lie and hide about it. And this is where positive self-help, it can be very problematic because people can feel like they're a loser and then they can lie and hide about it, but all they're doing is aligning themselves more in a miserable reality. So each one of these responses are not to be seen as negative. This is just where the person is at. This is just letting you know where you're at. This is where the problem comes in at. When you give into the entrapment. If you're in guilt, your consciousness is going to only see that you're being punished. We're not here to make a person feel that they're not being punished. Because whatever consciousness a person is in, you've got to deal with them in that level of consciousness. They cannot see what they cannot see. They cannot know what they do not know. So as a faith mentor, you're not trying to get them to change a narrative. They can't change a narrative without experiential truth. So what our job is to say, okay, you feel inferior, don't lie and hide about it. You feel like you're being punished, don't blame, don't victimize, and don't seek revenge. Instead, we want to encourage them to tell the truth if you're in shame. Receive atonement or forgiveness if you feel like you're being punished. It is not our service to be like, no, don't feel guilty for that. You shouldn't feel like you're being punished. If that person feels like they're being punished, we want to say, well, what do you feel? Why do you feel punished? What do you think you did wrong? Have you asked for forgiveness? Have you sought atonement? Did you go kill a chicken? Did you do whatever you need to do to sacrifice? That is actually the way to serve somebody in guilt. When I was at the Underground Mall in Atlanta in 2014 or 2013, I had unsubscribed to Jesus Christ dying on the cross for the sins of the world. I thought it was primitive. I did not believe in it. I thought it was something that was totally just dark and cruel to even teach or promote. I had this client who had cheated on her husband and with either somebody related to him. And they thought they were going to keep it a secret, but it found out. And her husband and the family were absolutely devastated. And she was embarrassed. She was guilty. And she came to get a reading. I don't remember why she came to get a reading, but she didn't come to me. She sat down next to my coworker. She became so uncontrollable, and she was Hispanic, so she had a translator. So my coworker said, "Can you help this?" Like, she looked at me like, and the lady just would not get up from the seat. She was just so uncontrollable, unreconcilable. So I came, asked her what was going on, and she did have a specific question. I think her question was, is her husband going to leave her? Is he going to leave her? Is she going to lose everything or something like that? And I said, yeah. Like, I told her the truth. I didn't lie about it. But I realized that she didn't care about those things. It was her guilt. And once again, she could not move, and she had a translator. So I spiritually said, Lord, how do I help this? How do I help this person? And I heard something say in me, she needs to do the sinner's prayer. Now, I don't believe in that anymore. So I'm like, the sinner's prayer, like, accept Jesus? And I asked her, would she believe that Jesus was perfect? That's what I said. I said, do you believe that Jesus was a perfect human? She says, yes. I said, well, his death on the cross is going to be the atonement for your guilt. If you admit that you were wrong, we can use his death as an atonement. And I had her repeat after me. And this lady's whole countenance changed. She stopped crying after that prayer. She gave me this big hug, and she got up and walked on her way. And my coworker said, what in the world? What just happened? You're not supposed to be giving anybody else, converting people down here. We're not a religious institution. But I had to meet her where she was at and give her that atonement. And so this is the measurement, this is the tool that you use to help people. The faith antidote is what you as a mentor want to encourage and empower. You're not trying to get people to change their narratives. They will change when they apply the faith, they will have the revelation that will change their narrative. Because all they're going to do, if you tell them, well, you shouldn't feel shame, you can tell them that, but all you're going to do is help them go more into lying or hiding, right? You don't want to feed their guilt and that ain't your fault and let them lead into blame. You don't want to entrap them into keeping them in that fractal. That's not helping them grow and empower. And so again, if you hear yourself saying, I am doomed, if you hear yourself in one of these, that is not a problem. That is not a problem. The problem is when you act out in these entrapments. If you hear yourself say, I'm a loser, I'm being punished, I'm being denied, those are just cues for you to lean over here into your faith antidote.
Adam, there's a question in the chat from Jasmine.
So, what are the anchoring truths? Well, I'm calling those the four absolutes. The four absolutes are what we're calling our anchoring truths. And what the anchoring truths are, these are the truths that to some degree, can be used to test what is a narrative. One, creative providership. The creator provides us what is needed. One of the biggest foundational lies that keep us in darkening, keep us in falsehood, is that we do not believe that we are going to be giving what we need by the creator or by life. This is the hardest test day to day, that we are not provided for what we needed. This is the illusion and the appearance and the conclusions that our mind so quickly wants to come to all the time. We are not provided for. Hold one second. The second one is self-custodianship. We're entrusted with our own choices for our life. The big illusion that the mind wants to come up with is that we are victims. We don't have a say-so. We don't want to take responsibility. Y'all probably have noticed this in yourselves and in people, right? Something happens in life, people don't get what they want, or they didn't get what they avoid, and they want to play victim. We want to play victim. Victimhood. And so the anchoring truth, no matter, I don't care what the situation is, as a faith mentor and as your own self, we've got to honor our fact that we make our choices and we are in charge of, we are the custodian of this human, of this life. Creature guardianship. It's about honoring and protecting others' dignity. One of the first stories in the Bible about murder, when Cain killed Abel, and his reply to God was, am I my brother's keeper? That ain't my creation, that's your creation. There's this lie that we're not responsible for others, right? It may sound, but we are responsible to honor and protect the dignity and the free will of others. Any narrative, any truth that does not support that, any narrative, whatever the story may be, it is going to be in the falsehood. Oops. And then the final one is future stewardship. Our choices are shaping our tomorrow. Any narrative, belief system, faith system, doctrine, new age teaching, old age teaching, ancient teaching, any teaching that denies future responsibility, future stewardship, that is not teachings, narratives, beliefs that align in truth. So as faith mentors, we're not here to give people beliefs. We're not here to give them our narratives. We're not here to give them religion, but we are here to hold them accountable to this test of these four, what I call these four absolutes. Is that story you're telling yourself? Is that affirming creative providership? Is that story you're telling yourself? Is that narrative running through your head? Is that taking responsibility with your choices? Is that narrative you telling dishonoring and not respecting the dignity of another person, even if it's your enemy? Is that narrative making you dishonor and not prepare and not plan and not give thought for tomorrow? Is that not taking account that you reap what you sow, that you don't know what tomorrow may bring? You don't know if the tables may turn, that you need to get yourself grieve because you don't know what's coming tomorrow to take place, and you need to have yourself clean and clear of guilt, of grief, for the sake of the future. So these are the four absolutes that anchor us into truth, that help us defend and protect against lies and falsehood. Anything that you hear that does not affirm and support this, that is a telltale sign that is a level of any conclusion that a person arrives at, whether they're telling you a metaphysical truth or anything, but it does not affirm and support these four. There is a level of falsehood that is not that there's falsehood in that. And so as faith mentors, our job is to anchor ourselves around these truths and then support other people in it too. All right. Comments, questions? So from the four absolutes lead to the four laws of fellowship and personal conduct. That is not today's focus. But because of the four absolutes, it leads to the laws of fellowship and personal conduct. So when it comes to any type of group that you are leading, facilitating, when it comes to your own personal conduct, the way to incorporate these exist, whether or not the absolutes are like, they exist whether or not they're like gravity. They exist whether or not you acknowledge them. But because you do acknowledge them, you want to translate them into these, what I call four laws of fellowship or personal conduct. Whenever you have a group, whenever you're meeting, whenever you're in a relationship, you want to guide your morality around creator respect, self-respect, creature respect, and future respect. Four absolutes give us a moral code to guide us in our relationships with each other and to guide us in our own personal life. Because we're being evolved to go beyond what did the Bible say? I don't think anybody on this call will ever do that. But for a lot of people on the planet, that's their only laws they know how to go to. What does the Bible say about that? What does this say about that? But that is we're outgrowing that, and we're going to continue to outgrow that every decade. And so we're the forerunners of people to say, we can't just rely on what the Bible says, what that manuscript says. But what we can say is, I can help give you some type of code for your relationship. I can give you a personal code by helping you understand, does that bring respect? Are you respecting the creator? Are you respecting yourself? Are you respecting others? And are you honoring and respecting your future? This is the overview of what faith mentoring does. That leads to what we call the supreme loyalties. The supreme loyalties are the day-to-day practices, sincerity and confession, which is truth-telling, atonement and forgiveness. Because when you tell the truth, you realize, damn, I was wrong. You need to get atonement and forgiveness. Prayer meditation to give yourself the right posture. What prayer meditation does is, prayer is aligning and asking for what you need and meditating on the four truths. Meditation is re-anchoring. It's like a chiropractic adjustment. You're coming back into alignment with those four absolutes. Divination and discernment, so you can find out what is the will of God for your life in this particular situation, learning how to discern, and then contributive fellowship and service. Offering your gifts and talents as a mentor. If you don't want to be a mentor, are you committing to fellowship, regular fellowship? By sharing your gifts. I had a call with a guy for 2 years, y'all. 2 years. I'm telling this guy, he says, is there any messages from the other side? And I say, hey, there's some guy, and it looks like he's trying to encourage you to be part of some group, maybe AA. You know, yeah, I used to do AA, but I don't go anymore. It's been years. I've been saying this forever. And finally, yesterday, I was able to name it in a way where I say, it's not for you. It's not for you to go. It's for what you're going to be for another person. But you also will get the fellowship. So it's about going and exposing ourselves to regular fellowship. Are you in some type of fellowship of people that are focusing on the four absolutes, practicing the four laws and the supreme loyalty, so you can hold yourself and be empowered? Because from contributive fellowship and service, you may get a revelation. That revelation may give you insight on what you need to do in this situation. Also, revelation always requires an upgrade of thinking. And that upgrade of thinking, you may realize, damn, I was wrong. And you're going to need atonement and forgiveness. So you get to confess to a group. So these are the practices. This is what you do to stay anchored in the four absolutes. This is how you coach people, or this is religion here, if you had the permit. Truth telling and confession. You know what? I effed up. You know what? Let me tell the truth. I'm miserable right now. Atonement and forgiveness. Staying clean. Because every time you get a new revelation about something, you realize something that you were doing in error. Whether it's eating, there's just so many things that you want to be able to say, you know what? I got to forgive myself. I was not respecting myself. You thought you were respecting yourself. Revelation comes and you realize, dang, I really was disrespecting myself, right? You thought you were honoring another person. Then you get revelation, you realize, dang, I really was disrespecting that person. Let me ask for forgiveness. And so these are the day-to-day practices that we'll be discussing in the academy. Here are what I'm calling the 9 attainments. This is the end goal when you live a life of this by living by these day-to-day practices: sincerity and confession, atonement and forgiveness, prayer and meditation, divination and discernment, contributive fellowship and service. This is what you can expect to have within you. This becomes your personality. This becomes the attainment of who you are as a being, effortlessly. You get positivity. You become a life-affirming presence that uplifts, empowers, and shares with others. You become a person of integrity, right? Where you just naturally don't do what ain't in line with you. It just like some of us are already there. When something doesn't feel aligned or makes us feel off here and not off here, we already like, no, thank you. Synchronicity. You begin to just find that life just flows, you know, to the point where you don't have to even journal it anymore. You don't have to tell anybody. You're not surprised by it, right? You're just like, of course that flowed like that. Authenticity. Sometimes people think they can fake authenticity, but you can't. Authenticity is something that's naturally born, where you're not trying to force authenticity. It just happens because of the way you've chosen to live. Sympathy, generosity, constancy, empathy, and then mastery. All of these become the core characteristics of who you are. These aren't things that you try to produce. When you live loyal to these practices, through these honoring these laws, this is what you attain. This is a statehood. This is the personality. These are the things that you get attained into who you are. And then they lead to health, happiness, and sanity. And yeah, so this is the essence of faith mentoring in the Spiritual Academy. What we mostly will work on is the 4 laws. And Jasmine, under, well, everybody, but Jasmine asked, under self-respect, the week under self-respect is where we're going to have a whole 3 weeks dedicated to self-respect. And that's pretty much all talking about human design. Not it is, it's just human design. Human design is all under that. Human design is under self-respect and creature respect. We're going to have 3 weeks dedicated to human design in a way where it is geared towards how to respect yourself and respect others. Okay. Any, so creative providership is so important. And I'm struggling with it, y'all. I'm struggling with the creative providership. I ain't gonna hold you. Creative providership is the foundation and trust in God's care, the universe care. It's the foundational trust and assurance in a higher power for our needs. Because not having those needs met, that's the root of why we angry, mad, bitter, upset, lying, cheating, deceiving, doing all types of evil. Because we don't believe we're going to get what we need. It makes us evil. It makes us cling. It makes us all, it roots us in the negativity because we are believing a lie that we're not going to have what we need. And man, these illusions, they be eluding or they be lying. I mean, it is, they feel so real. You're not going to get what you want, or you're not going to avoid what you don't want. That's what the illusion is always whispering. All of the illusions, all the appearances are trying to tell you you're not going to be happy. You're not going to get what you want for happiness. You're not going to be able to avoid misery. Something goes wrong, and we just immediately go into the negativity. And ultimately, the core wound that it always brings up is that we have been abandoned by the universe. We've been abandoned by God and we're all alone. And it's a dog eat dog world. So if I don't lie, cheat, steal, deceive, if I don't just engage in the ways of negative world, I'm not going to get what I want because I just can't trust that it's going to come. I can't trust that I can do good. I can't trust that I can do right by people and not be taken advantage of. And so this is really the root. There's a scene in Gone to Win where Scarlett O'Hara, it's a famous scene. And if y'all have not watched Gone to Win, I'm biased. I think you should watch it. Anyway, there's a scene where she's like, I ain't ever gonna be hungry again. She was hungry after the Civil War. And so she says, if I gotta lie, steal, kill, cheat, she's like, by golly, I bet you I won't be hungry again. And that's exactly what she did. All those things. She did exactly all those things. And she got, but what she did not get was peace of mind. She never got peace. And so most of us live like that. Appearances come and be like, this ain't gonna happen to me again. I'll be this, I'll become this person, I'll become hard-hearted, I'll become manipulative, I won't tell the truth, I won't be authentic. And then life reinforced that belief. But when we rest in it, we find provisions for our health, our happiness, and our sanity. And so we must be embodied this so we can transmit this assurance to others. So that's why those who are called to be faith mentors, that's why we go through so much. Because the universe is like, hey, I got to get you really anchored in the trust and assurance that the provider provides for you so you can really support others, because this is the root issue of negativity in the world. Somebody was talking about Charlie Kirk, and it was really deep how they were saying that Charlie Kirk's entire hatred and disdain for blacks and minorities and DEI all came because in high school he did not get accepted to West Point. And someone told him it was because they put a black person in place. And he built an entire career off of that. And so there's so much negativity can be traced back to people feeling like they're left to defend for themselves They're left out here. They're not going to be provided for. So they got to steal, kill, blame, and do negativity. Yeah, Phoenix.
Okay, so I was thinking about creative providership right before you started talking about it. And when you broke down, like, it's one you struggle with, absolutely 100% one that I struggle with regularly. And this is what I'm thinking about it. And this might just be me, but somebody kept telling me, just say it to the room. So I speak to God, but I don't speak God, meaning I don't speak God's language per se. So the the hesitancy or resistance or fear related to creator providership is not that I don't trust in God's care, but there seems to be a fine line between God's like endless, infinite support, care, and nurturing, and where my frailties or where my like on that first chart, like the scale of when I'm in a fractal space. There's a fine line between knowing when you're in a fractal space and when, just trusting God. Do you get what I'm saying? I know I'm not explaining it right. I feel it so deeply, but I can't put the words to it. But it's sort of um like you don't know when you're like being in avoidance or like
Your
and versus
responsibility. So your responsibility.
yes, you don't like it's a fine line because I don't speak creator. It's a fine line between like, am I not moving on something that's entrusted in
Yeah.
me?
Yeah, this is
And
good. This is good,
you with
Phoenix.
me?
This is, yep,
This is
you,
where I mean it's wearing me out because I hear you and I was like, oh, I
yeah.
know what that is.
So
I have that feeling all the
So let
time.
me get and so thank you. So let me jump off of this and keep it moving. Sometimes when I hear y'all quiet or I get stuck, but I need to just trust myself and keep teaching. But thank you, Phoenix. You basically what you're telling me is keep it moving because I address it.
That's awesome.
I think I address it. I attempt to address it. All right. So we talked about falsehood, the root distortion. All right. So when it comes to the root distortion for creative falsehood, is it we got this happened one time and I had to learn this. This happened one time. And so what's happening is at some fractal, something happened at some fractal, and we really reached a conclusion. No, I'm really alone down here. If I don't lie, cheat, and steal, I ain't gonna get it. When you at the fractal of shame, it's like, nah, these people are evil. Like, nah, you don't, no, my family evil. Them dogs are evil. If
Right.
I don't, if I
Right.
don't lie and cheat and steal with them, I'm gonna be taken out. So each fractal is like, what was I supposed to do? Um, so when scarcity, delay, and suffering arise, you got these lies. So it's like, was the creator really there for me when I was being molested? Was the creator really there for me when we watched him come and steal everything we got? Was the creator
Right.
really there for us? And so this really again, these appearances are strong. So what we have to focus on is what you need. So here goes old sources of scriptures that have always trying to anchor in us. We have what we need. The Lord is your shepherd. You shall not want. Jesus says, look at the birds of the air. Y'all are more valuable than them. You are way more valuable than them. You're humans. Y'all don't need to be doing all this plotting and strategy to get your basic needs met. I love this verse from the Quran. I love this verse so much. And it says, and he provides for him from sources he never could imagine. Jesus, that just does something to me, right? Because I'm an imaginative person. And when my imagination starts imaginating, that's when I go, ugh, I can't imagine. How is this going to happen for me? So I love this verse so much. And just the idea that there is so much that can be provided for us. So we've always got these. The issue does come back to, well, the inner resources. Because what we have to distinguish is, and this is where the Bhagavad Gita come in at, the bond gives wisdom to those who love, to those who love. So there's an idea of distinguishing between the material and the inner resources. As faith mentors, we got to be rooted and anchored in knowing that it's our inner world that creates our outer world. As a faith mentor, we got to know that. We got to be anchored in knowing it's my inner world that creates my outer world. Because when I say hello, somebody, I do want to hear you. Testify if you know. You can get all the external things you want. But golly, them external things don't mean nothing if you still miserable and oppressed and unhappy and in grief or in any type of stress. What good do they bring? Right? And I hear people say, well, no, I'd rather cry in my own apartment than to cry, somewhere else. And I don't know. I used to say that. Well, but now sometimes I'm like, damn, this is pretty. When you low, it's like, I'd rather sit on that bench next to that homeless man with that smile on his face than to be stuck in all this misery. Let me be careful how quickly I say that, because your boy's finances is.
I was about to say, watch your back. Don't hey.
But there was a time that I did feel at peace. I've been evicted so many times, y'all, and I'm facing eviction right now. But I remember when I first got evicted in 2013, I was under so much stress, and when I finally had to move out, golly, I was so free that summer. That was like my freest summer ever. Like, I thought there was just so much freedom, and I was like, damn, this is why people are homeless. Because I'm like, what the hell was I so stressed for? I mean, I had a place to stay. I was sofa hopping. But I just remember the idea was like, golly, I was stressed. Like, I was in all that stress, and here I am feeling so free. But even now, I'm like, I ain't doing that again. Anyway, we're talking about inner resources. So we think if I had the money, the house, I'll be happy. Reality is all we want is the inner resource. All we want is the inner resource. And so the falsehood is mistaken material for the inner essence, right? It's not, the law of attraction teaches us, feel the experience of the relationship, feel the experience of the new car, feel the experience of having all your needs, feel the experience of being in your new house. But they teach it in a way to get the thing. The reality is that's all you want. All you want is the inner experience of intimacy. All you want is the satisfaction of love. All you want is the peace of mind of knowing you have all your bills paid. Because some of us ain't going to be doing nothing different in our day-to-day life if we got an extra $1 million, right? After a while, we're still going to be doing the same routine. We just want the security in knowing we have it. We just want the relationship for the comfort and assurance of knowing somebody is there. I'm not diminishing the material things, but we got to remind ourselves that it's the inner experience, and it's the inner experience that the universe will always provide. As that scripture from the Quran says, there's infinite ways for the creator of the universe to meet our needs. What we want to ask for is peace, joy, satisfaction, not the thing. Ask correctly is to ask and be provided for. Give me peace. Give me joy today. And the universe will provide all the ways. In 2013, that time where I had that first experience of not having my own permanent place, I needed that freedom that summer so bad. I needed that freedom. I mean, that was the freedom that without that freedom, I would not have been able to transition into doing tarot card readings at the Underground Mall. I didn't have any pressure. So I could take the risk to go try to do tarot card readings, do tarot card classes, and get a job. That changed my life. That was one of the biggest life-changing choices. But I needed the freedom. So I was asking, Lord, please help me hold on to my apartment. But the Spirit was saying, we're going to give you freedom right now. Not that I had to be homeless, but they were just out of the options that were available, that the best option was for me to have the freedom and the joy. And that really was a beautiful summer for me. Golly, I mean, I get emotional now just thinking about how much fun and free I felt that summer. It led to so much more in my life. So it's always the inner experience. Jesus told his disciples, if your child asks for a fish, will you give him this is messed up. There's a story in the Bible where Jesus says, if your child asks for a rope, would you give him a snake? If he asked for bread, would you give him a stone? And what Jesus was trying to point in that parable to his disciples is that he was asking the disciples this: if your 2-year-old, 3-year-old child, if that 2 or 3-year-old child mistakes the rope, mistakes the snake outside as a rope. If that 2 or 3-year-old child sees a snake and it really thinks that snake is a rope, it goes, oh, wow, look at that rope. It's going to be fun to play with. And it goes to grab that snake. You're not going to give that. You're not going to let that. A wise and loving parent is not going to let that child play with that snake. That child is going to cry. It's going to kick. It's going to scream. It is going to yell. It's going to do all types of stuff because it's going to want that snake that it thinks is a rope. It's going to beg. It's going to, I want it. I want it. And Jesus is saying, which one of you all are going to break down and give that child that snake? He says, none of y'all. None of y'all are going to do that. So he says, so it is with your heavenly Father. He gives you good gifts. The issue is Jesus told that story because most of the time we're asking for things that are not going to bring us peace, freedom, joy, expansion, success. And we get locked in on it, and it makes us feel like the universe abandoned me. They didn't give me that person. They didn't give me that thing. Well, baby, that person was a snake. And there was no peace and joy and satisfaction to be found from that. And that's hard sometimes. That's hard sometimes to part. But the idea is that if you're not getting something that you're asking for, it genuinely is something that is not going to bring you the greater peace, joy, and satisfaction. Whether it's the job, whether it's holding on to the apartment, whatever it be. So what you want to pray for is say, Father, Creator, Gaia, ancestors, angels, higher power, please bring me peace of mind. Please I want day-to-day joy and fun. And then that the universe bring it to you in ways that you can't imagine. Because the material provision sometimes there may not may not be materially available. But you can still have the peace. You can still have the fun. You can still have the comfort. You can still have the joy. You can still have it, right? If you crave intimacy, we say, well, Adam, I need another person to experience intimacy with. Well, what is the end result of intimacy? Satisfaction. Okay, what you want is satisfaction. Intimacy makes you feel satisfied in your body. So ask for satisfaction. Ask for pleasure. You'd be surprised at all the different ways it can come in your life. And this is how we want to coach and mentor people. And so when you receive the inner experience, it generates genuine gratitude. When you get that inner experience, it really is a sense of gratitude. It makes it authentic. It's authentic gratitude. And then gratitude aligns you with any material blessing that when they're useful and they're available. And so there is a part of our part that says you must align yourself. Ralph Waldo Emerson said, no kernel of nourishing corn can come to that man, but through the toil bestowed on that plot of ground which is given him. Providence is assured that we're going to be taken care of, but it meets us where we are aligned in what we call God's will, our assignment, our strategy, and our authority. At your address, right? The universe is always sending what you need to your address that it has on file for you. That it has on file. So if you up over here, an assignment all the way doing where you ain't supposed to be at, you might be missing your provision. So you got to make sure that you are aligning your day-to-day choices and putting yourself in the right places, in the right network, in the right people, in the right groups, in the right work, in the right delivering the right things that's correct for you to deliver so you can get what is provided with you. And so most of the time, we aren't getting even those things we need because we are not serving in the right place. We're not delivering. We're not offering up. We're not on the assignments and the alignments where those needs are met. the universe is really peculiar with sending all that you need to the address it has on files for you. I did a reading for a time, and this person said, I've been praying and manifesting this. I saw so much. It looked like a yard. In my mind's eye, I saw like a yard that was just full of packages, Amazon packages, just stuff piled up on the porch in the yard. I said, everything you ask is been delivered. You just ain't at home. You in the wrong, you ain't in the right, you ain't in the alignment to receive it because you all the way over here. Because you didn't think you were going to be provided for. So you started doing this and started doing this and started doing this. And now you got yourself aligned in a whole nother place. And this is the gift of being a faith mentor, is because we can help a person say, you have what you need, but you've abandoned your assignment. You abandon your lane where the universe provided for your wealth at, provided for your material blessing. Get in alignment with that. We're going to hold your hand and help you get in alignment with that. So this is where our part comes in at. Our part comes in one, we're going to ask for the inner resource. And as you get the inner resource, we're going to work to help you get in alignment with where your assignment is, where your alignment is, because that's where your blessings will come from. Again, this is just such a powerful quote. That the universe is good. The universe provides. You got to be on your plot. You got to be doing your work. You got to be doing your labor. You got to be living out your design. You got to be living authentic as the manifesting emotional generator that you are, serving how you are meant to serve. That's where you will be taken care of. And so it is about this idea of, it is just not, let me just sit back and do nothing, but it is doing things that is in alignment with who you are. So getting rich or getting material blessings is about aligning yourself in the things that are correct for you. And so what we do is, first, we identify any abandonment narratives in ourselves, but you also really want to help identify abandonment narratives in other people that feel like, I had to defend for myself here. I had to do this. Like I meet a lot of projectors, and they say, if I don't go and invite myself, no invitation is coming. Right? There's manifesting generators that feel like nothing good comes if I haven't initiated it. And so a lot of times we've got to help a person say, no, you weren't being abandoned. You weren't abandoned. You just have not aligned yourself. And are we confusing our wants and desires with true needs? Are we thinking our preferences of the material way we want the material to show up? What you want is freedom. But how that freedom may show up, we don't know. What you want is the success. What you want is satisfaction. You don't know how it's going to show up for you. And then we help others practice gratitude when they recognize, wow, you got this need met. Let's honor and be grateful for it. And we help them in trust and assurance rather than striving and trying to make it happen any means necessary. And so that's when we come back and we confess, we admit our scarcity thinking, we release guilt around our errors in alignment, we return our heart posture to courage, and we use the fellowship to help us distinguish from what we're craving versus what's been provided for it. And we share testimonies of how we have all been taken care of. And then that creates a positive flow that allows us to reach some levels of attainment. And yeah. That last part, but y'all get it.